test. Hello? 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 Hello. We're here. All right. We're back with a incredibly jank setup um on a laptop. Wait, let me get the Oh, hello. Hello, Bacchus the Saint. Welcome in. We're going to be reading. This is one of the things we like to do on this stream. We'll go and we read texts out loud. This is something not enough people do for these kind of things, and they can lead to discussions and stuff. And I have a deep love for the Upanishads, um, at least the principal ones, and there's a few of the other ones I'm familiar with. But we're gonna read some of those. But first, we're gonna do something that we have not done on this stream before. Um, Also, can you hear me all right? I'm on a new setup with my laptop, and I don't know how the audio is. Oh. Oh, that's wonderful. First thing we're gonna do though is we're gonna not tried this before. We're gonna see if we can make a little musical accompaniment for for the our reading. Maybe something quiet, something contemplative. Um, let's see. We're gonna craft it on the fly. I got a Electron Digitact this week, and I've been I've fallen in love with this little thing. It's so good. Um, let's see. Making a new project. It's interesting. It's interesting what does and does not show on the Overbridge engine. It shows as you like move between things, but like you can't actually track what's going on the screen. Um, which is interesting. Cool. Um, Reduce audio. Probably don't need that. Let's look what we got for samples. It's unfortunate that y'all can't see most of this. How are you doing today, Bacchus? Mm. Oh, I'm making little pop sounds with my lips, but the noise filtering is blocking them out, which is unfortunate. Um, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Oh, I lose my way around this thing sometimes. Import samples. What do we got? Maybe I should have planned this part a little bit more beforehand, but we'll figure it out. Synth stabs and pads. Is that a little too on the nose? sound is so fun. I have yet to find an excuse to use this silly ass sound, but ridiculous. Where's the one that I liked? That's the one. Let's take those three. And let's see what we can do with them. Let's turn the kick drum into... It does sort of have those vibes, you're right. It's a good song, actually. I've been playing that on guitar recently. It's fun. Randy had a very strange... He played chords in a way that that most other people do not in metal. A lot of kind of like chords that are almost like power chords, but like, or you play them and use them in a similar way, but they're not quite that. They're, you know, more advanced and more kind of thoughtful and tuneful and ambiguous, and it's pretty interesting. I want to make stuff like that, or at least I like that specific property. Oh, it shows the movement of what we're doing. I have not heard the tribute album with the Suicide Solution solo, no. What do we want to do with this? Oh, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. What do you think? This jump is too much. Yeah, that is my guitar playing on the Bandcamp, and the song that was playing before I started the stream is me. I make all my own stuff. I have to resist the urge to make this minor. That's not what I want right now. Don't know why I like really into that fifth jump for some reason right now, but I don't want that either. maybe I'm overthinking this. This is supposed to be the background and not the main point of this stream. Length 32. Oh. Nope. I wish that I had a way to make more of the overbridge stuff show up on the screen. Besides, I guess having a camera here over the little thing. This is probably quite boring. But it's okay. This is my first time trying to do this. Wait, does the metronome doesn't come across an overbridge? What? Hello? Can I get the metronome to come in? Active, pre-roll bars volume. Okay, well, I guess we just cannot have a metronome. That's okay. What we can have is a pseudo metronome. Nope. What? Track. Closed hat. There we go. We got a nice little guy. Oh, I see. Okay, we need a longer pattern. Oh, they just repeated it for the third. This is a smart little machine. It's a smart little box. That's not what I wanted to do. Shoot. Here we go. I don't know what the hell that noise is. That's fantastic. Yeah, this. I think I did a bad job with this. I think this isn't what I wanted at all. What if I turn the tempo down? And that's a little better. Oh my god, I'm on the wrong track. Having this down on the table in front of me instead of in my lap where I'm used to having it is really throwing me off. That's an annoying thing. Why is it so loud when it switches the patterns? Very curious. Even though that's not even what I was intending to do. Ooh, this is very silly. We've moved from Mr. Crowley to now we're in some Silent Hill kind of shit. Wow, I'm really not on it today. The thing is I feel like this is actually pretty good, but I don't I don't know if it's the vibe. I don't know if it is quite respectful to the Lord as it is. Okay, let me think. Oh my god, I was so... You know, one of the things that I was specifically desiring not to do, so I watched this video from this YouTube channel called Acid Horizon, where they were interviewing some guy talking about Nietzsche, and during the whole interview, there's this like really annoying ambient music playing in the background, and it feels like, I hope this is, we'll see what effect this achieves, and if I end up sticking with this method of doing this, but anyway, just an experiment. I am gonna turn it down before I start reading, I'm just trying to hear it. Why is this so detuned? I'm glad you have, oh my god, I'm glad you have found it fun to watch. Specifically, I wish I had something to make it more visually dynamic than seeing a slight bit of it on the Digitact screen, on the Overbridge screen. I guess that's what we're going with. Okay, this is quite silly, but that's okay. How can I change the master volume that is coming in to the computer? Is that possible? Because the thing is it isn't just playing for y'all, it's playing for me, and it's playing louder for me because it's not controlled. I guess I have 2 tracks. I can just turn them down. Okay. Well, um, mhm. Okay. We have accidentally created a Silent Hill track. And now let's read about God, I guess. Oh my god, okay. This reader is very funky. Wait, let me move this. I need to move this to a different desktop so it's easier to see for me. And can I just swap the desktop order? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Hiccup. Cool. So, as you may or may not know, the Upanishads are a section of the Vedas, which are which are a large body of Indian religious texts. One of the oldest sets of religious texts, if you start from the oldest one. They kind of cover a bunch of different things, and they're composed of different sections, some of which are concerned with rituals, some of which are like hymns, and stuff. And the Upanishads specifically are kind of like the last section of each of the Vedas. And each of the individual Upanishads were like composed at a different time by different people with kind of different motivations and differing internal philosophies. But the kind of main thing is that they're kind of concerned with an esoteric, like an internal wisdom gained by meditation and contemplation, and are kind of a internal reflection of a lot of the kind of outward stuff. Oh, go back. That is the outward parts of things that are talked about in the rest of the Vedas. And oh my god, I keep clicking the wrong thing. Stay put. Stay put. Nope, not you. There we go. Okay. What was I saying? But they are kind of a direct, so we're reading them here on VTuber Philosophy Reading because they are works of philosophy, even though they're, theology, but they are specifically directly concerned with explaining stuff in kind of a direct way. Although, there's like poetic and prosaic elements to them, of course. But yeah, they're concerned with explaining stuff. I have a friend who is somewhere between pagan and Buddhist and kind of oscillates between these poles. And one time I was I was reading I was sitting in a chair in our living room when we were roommates. I was reading the Gospel of John, and I think I might have been crying, or I was just very moved. I was reading like John 6, I think, the Bread of Life discourse. And my friend had asked me, he said, read me some of that. Like, what's it about? What's that all about? And I started reading into it, and it said, what is he even talking about? Like, why doesn't he ever just explain what he means? Like, what even is any of that? This is very funny to me. Now, the Upanishads are funny because they're kind of the opposite of this. They kind of, they use metaphor and stuff, but they kind of explain to you what they're about. And but I do, I find them to be, I consider them divinely inspired. They have touched me personally and influenced me in a very meaningful and important way. And I've wanted to read them on stream for a while, but I have not streamed for a while because I've been busy doing other stuff. And even now, I'm kind of on a janky setup with my laptop instead of my previous setup. And I don't have, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's fun to blink. I don't remember this specific statement you're referring to, but yeah, I mean, he had a very particular way of going about it, or at least the gospel writers write him as having a very particular way of going about it. And the kind of proverbs and the little kind of pithy lines and stuff are also kind of quite different from like what is happening in the Gospel of John, which is much more much more kind of like extended, interconnected thoughts and mystical discourse. I really, really love the Gospel of John. Anyway, that said, we're first going to read the Isha Upanishad and then the Chandogya Upanishad. I'm reading from the Eknath Iswaran. I don't actually know how his name is pronounced. Translation, because that's I have a physical copy of this one, and I quite like it. And I'm going to read the little introductions that are written before them too, because they provide a little bit of context, and they're kind of nice, even though the little ebook is kind of messed up. But I like to read stuff out loud here. It's a fun thing to do. Well, I mean, hey, I don't think if you're gonna put a wall of text in my chat, putting something from the Gospels is not the worst thing. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him it shall be given, and he shall have more in abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's also kind of sections where he will, say something publicly and then take the disciples aside to explain it to them in more detail. And then sometimes this is recorded, and then sometimes it's just kind of hinted at and says that he does it and then doesn't actually record that explanation. The Gospels are very strange. They're very, very strange. I quite love them for that. Anyway, that's actually not what we're here for today, though. Isha, the inner ruler, he has it titled. The introductions are not written by the guy who translated it. They're by like a second guy that he worked with. And then a quote from the Upanishad that we're about to read. The self is everywhere. Bright is the self, indivisible, untouched by sin, wise, immanent and transcendent. He it is who holds the cosmos together. Now, a note in case you were not aware, with the Upanishads, whenever there is self translated with the capital S, this refers to Atman, which is a kind of, it's a unique conception of like the divine inner self. You can compare it to the Holy Spirit in Christianity, especially if you understand the Holy Spirit as a movement towards theosis. But you know, we don't want to collapse the distinctions too much, because this can prevent you from absorbing something that you wouldn't otherwise. But that is a very helpful point of reference, and can enrich your understanding of both. If all the Upanishads and all the other scriptures happened all of a sudden to be reduced to ashes, and if only the first verse of the Isha Upanishad were left in the memory of the Hindus, Hinduism would live forever. With these words, Mahatma Gandhi paid tribute to the remarkable Upanishad that traditionally stands at the beginning of most Indian collections. It owes this priority to the poetic grandeur and sustained profundity of its language, which, in only 18 verses, established the fundamental building blocks of spiritual awareness. What Gandhi had in mind with his great tribute, he made clear in his reply to a journalist who wanted the secret of his life in 3 words: renounce and enjoy, from the first verse of the Isha. The 5th century Greek writer we know as Dionysius the Areopagite, oh my god, also known as, people call him Pseudo-Dionysius, you can see, anyway, doesn't matter, once said that as he grew older and wiser, his books got shorter and shorter. He would have envied the sage of this Upanishad. In its intensity, he does not mince words. The central section, verses 9 to 14, is what scholars call a crux, or a famously difficult passage. The translation brings out its practical significance. Materialism leads us to lose awareness of our inner life, which is bad enough, but to be hypnotized by our own feelings and sensations and forget about others in the world around us is worse. By living in awareness of both these worlds, we can rise above them towards the one reality. With the last 4 verses, we emerge onto that lofty plane, and the Upanishad takes on a tone of intense devotion that is rare even in later God-centered mystical literature. Each Upanishad comes with an invocation drawn from a traditional set. The invocation to the Isha is especially striking. Consistent with the condensed meaning of the Upanishad itself, it rings changes on a simple household word, full, purnam. In the inexhaustible reality, the infinite of that world, the unseen, sends forth this world of infinite variety in which we live, without ever being diminished. The American poet Anne Sexton may have been thinking about this haunting invocation when she wrote, "Then the well spoke to me. It said, abundance is scooped from abundance, yet abundance remains." This is a very Gandhian idea. Materialism reinforces a paradigm of scarcity. There is not enough to go around, so we are doomed to fight one another for ever diminishing resources. Spiritual economics begins not from the assumed scarcity of matter, but from the veritable infinitude of consciousness. Think of this one original source, Plotinus says, as a spring, self-generating, feeding all of itself to the rivers and yet not used up by them, ever at rest. Or, as Gandhi put it, there is enough in the world for everyone's need. There is not enough for everyone's greed. The appearance of scarcity overcomes those for whom, as the Upanishad says, the world without alone is real. There is no scarcity of love, respect, meaning, the resources of consciousness. Such is the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads. So, that's the little introduction. And now, each of them begins with a little hymn. I think that's actually the transition from where the rest of the Veda goes into the Upanishad part. Or it actually might be from the part of the Veda it's from. Anyway, I forget exactly. I'm not a scholar. I don't purport to be a scholar on this. I'm not an expert. I just have a love for them. The Isha Upanishad. All this is full. All that is full. From fullness, fullness comes. When fullness is taken from fullness, fullness still remains. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. The Lord is the supreme reality. Oh, also, I think what they translate as Lord, I think it's called the Isha Upanishad because the word that they translate as Lord here is actually Isha, and it's not used in a lot of the other Upanishads. Because usually they just refer to Brahman, who is the name for like the infinite source God. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. The Lord is a supreme reality. Rejoice in him through renunciation. Covet nothing. All belongs to the Lord. Thus working may you live 100 years. Thus alone will you work in real freedom. Those who deny the self are born again, blind to the self, enveloped in darkness, utterly devoid of love for the Lord. The self is one, ever still. The self is swifter than thought, swifter than the senses. Though motionless, he outruns all pursuit. Without the self, never could life exist. The self seems to move, but is ever still. He seems far away, but is ever near. He is within all, and he transcends all. Those who see all creatures in themselves, and themselves in all creatures, know no fear. Those who see all creatures in themselves, and themselves in all creatures, know no grief. How can the multiplicity of life delude the one who sees its unity? The self is everywhere. Bright is the self, indivisible, untouched by sin, wise, immanent, and transcendent. He it is who holds the cosmos together. In dark night live those for whom the world without alone is real. In night darker still, for whom the world within alone is real. The first leads to a life of action, the second to a life of meditation. But those who combine action with meditation cross the sea of death through action and enter into immortality through the practice of meditation. So have we heard from the wise. In dark night live those for whom the Lord is transcendent only. In night darker still, for whom he is immanent only. But those for whom he is transcendent and immanent cross the sea of death with the immanent and enter into immortality with the transcendent. So have we heard from the wise. The face of truth is hidden by your orb of gold, O sun. May you remove your orb so that I, who adore the true, may see the glory of truth. O nourishing sun, solitary traveler, controller, source of life for all creatures, spread your light and subdue your dazzling splendor, so that I may see your blessed self. Even that very self am I. May my life merge in the immortal when my body is reduced to ashes. O mind, meditate on the eternal Brahman. Remember the deeds of the past. Remember, O mind, remember. O God of fire, lead us by the good path to eternal joy. You know all our deeds. Deliver us from evil, we who bow and pray again and again. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So that's the first one. I really think that that's a religious text that everyone should read, honestly. I think one of the really, really critical things is the affirmation of the immanence and transcendence of God. Like, that God is really present in the world, and that but that God is also like the part of from fullness comes and fullness still remains. Like, that the infinity of God is really like an absolutely replete delight in itself. And this for me is, I'm Christian, so this is deeply tied into how I understand my theology of the Trinity. But it was actually put pretty well in the introduction to this, that there is something about God and about the spiritual life that looks for love being the underlying force of reality in a way that really means genuine, like, overflowing fullness and kind of infinite possibility and infinite variety and kind of an infinitely deeper motion that is without kind of fear or resentment and without like negation, and love is really the right word for it. Where if you've ever been really in love, or had a very, or even not just in love, but been in a relationship that was very, very loving, of any kind, there is something about this call to be ever deeper and ever more, and this kind of effortless self-giving, and you find yourself by going out of yourself in a way that you normally do in other relationships in the world, in other interactions. You find yourself by going out of yourself, because that's the kind of nature of consciousness and nature of like having a subjectivity. But it's oftentimes there appears to be something kind of violent about it, something kind of lost, something not translated or not fully there. But in a relationship of love, like even the kind of misrecognitions or the ways that they see you that are different from you somehow add more to you, and there's just kind of endless reiteration and building on a theme. Like it's like there's just this endless variety that is just delight and joy and wonder, and it's scary to go deeper and deeper and deeper, but it doesn't have to be. And God is really present in the world. God is really the foundation of the world, and but God also infinitely exceeds the world. The Ramanuja, who wrote a commentary, who wrote a couple of commentaries talking about the Vedas, but in particular he wrote a treatise about the Upanishads, where he was talking about his approach to, there's a few, there's a number of, there's a lot of different Indian philosophies, and there's a lot of different kind of Vedantic philosophies, but one of the ones that people are most familiar with is Advaita non-dualism. But Ramanuja espouses what he calls like qualified non-dualism, and so for him, the world, the world has its foundation in God, but God exceeds the world. And the metaphor he uses constantly is that the world is like God's body, and then God is like the soul of the world, which not to think of it in the way of like a world soul, because that's actually what the body would be, but that God is like this kind of extra thing that's there that exceeds it and kind of ties it all together, but transcends it and kind of is like infinitely, is beyond it, despite being like being connected with it and being like being part of, the body is compositionally connected to the soul. Like the soul is not something that's separate, but it is something that is like both immanent and transcendent to the body. So anyway, that's the Isha Upanishad. Now let's read the Chandogya. The Chandogya, I believe, is one of the oldest Upanishads, at least according to scholars. Excuse me. Those who depart from this world without knowing who they are or what they truly desire have no freedom here or hereafter. But those who leave here knowing who they are and what they truly desire have freedom everywhere, both in this world and in the next. Okay, so we're reading the introduction right now. In the wisdom of ancient India, the universe came forth from the invisible and unchanging reality, like the uttering of a meaningful sound, mystical speech, which is why the Vedas are thought of as existing long before human beings or anything else. It was not a big bang, but a big and it is with this image that the Upanishad named Chandogya The uprising of sacred song begins. Just as Western scientists seek the laws of the physical universe in a kind of echo of that primordial explosion, the sages who predated them by so many centuries heard Om, the primordial sound, and discovered deep laws governing all existence. The universe is founded on two principles they discovered. One is Rita, law, order, or regularity. Without it, no scientific discovery would be possible. More importantly, no moral discovery would be possible. Human experience would have no meaning, for we would have no way to learn from our experiences. And the second principle is yajna, sacrifice. The universe, they tell us, runs on renunciation. The most significant human action is the sacrifice of personal gain for the sake of something higher and holier. If Rita is the moral law, yajna is the human response to live in accordance with that law, taking nothing from life for oneself, but everywhere seeking to give of oneself to life. Jesus was essentially describing Rita when he said, "By the same measure you mete out to others, by that measure it shall be meted out to you." In Rajna when he said, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." We can use things, but to be in harmony with the underlying laws of life, we should never feel that they are really ours. As the Isha Upanishad so simply puts it, everything belongs to the Lord. This awareness leads to a profound peace, which the Chandogya conveys in one of the Upanishad's most poignant images. As a tethered bird flies this way and that, and comes to rest at last in its own perch, so the mind, tired of wandering about, settles down in the self. This Upanishad charts an inward course back to speech, breath, and vital energy, prana, and ultimately to the self, or Brahman. Prana tends to become the focus of attention whenever it comes up, and that is what happens in the sections that follow, containing the famous stories of Satyakama and I forgot that this one has names. I can do it. I've said it before. Shvetaketu, Satyakama, Shvetaketu. I can do it. These two spiritual students are a striking contrast, as Satyakama breaks down social convention. Born out of wedlock, he has the courage to admit as much to his teacher, who honors that courage and accepts him. This episode is one of the most imaginative frame stories for teaching in all of the Upanishads, which is saying a lot, as various odd birds and animals teach him 1 foot of Brahman at a time until he is illumined. Prana also provides an explanation for the process we call death, as prana, life energy, is withdrawn in progressive steps, the same kind of steps by which the universe itself was manifested and will be withdrawn into its ultimate source. This prepares us for a triumphant declaration of Chapter 8, the City of Brahman, a moving description of Brahmaloka, the land of no change, beyond all death and suffering. While we actually visit this site without knowing it, while in deep sleep, we can possess it in full awareness through the heroic spiritual disciplines the Upanishads are always leading us to. We can live in this very world free from sorrow, ill health, perturbation, distress of any kind. And then for us death, while it claims the body, will never touch us because we are identified completely with the self, which is a bridge or bulwark none of these can cross. My understanding of, well, I'm not gonna impose my stuff too much on the little introduction to the text. I have different thought. I have a particular thought about death and particular thoughts about death and bliss and heaven that differ from these texts. But that's not the reason. That's not the point of why we're here. 1 second, I have a friend who sent me something important. Okay. I have returned. The Chandogya Upanishad. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Chapter 1. The Word. Let us meditate on Om, the imperishable, the beginning of prayer. For as the earth comes from the waters, plants from the earth, and man from plants, so man is speech, and speech is Om. Of all speech, the essential is the Rig Veda, but Sama is the essence of Rig, and of Sama, the essence is Om, the Udgitha. This is the essence of essences, the highest, the eighth rung, venerated above all that human beings hold holy. Om is the self of all. What is Rig, and what is Sama at the heart of prayer? As Rig is speech, so Sama is song, and the imperishable Om is the Udgitha. Speech and breath, Sama and Rig are couples, and in the imperishable Om, they come together to fulfill each other's desire. For those who, knowing this, meditate on the imperishable Om, all desires are fulfilled. With the word Om we say, I agree, and fulfill desires. With Om we recite, we give direction. We sing aloud the honor of that word, the key to the three kinds of knowledge. Side by side, those who know the self and those who know it not do the same thing, but it is not the same. The act done with knowledge, with inner awareness and faith, grows in power. That, in a word, tells the significance of Om, the indivisible. Chapter 3. This translation of his, oh goodness, I'm frozen. Why am I frozen? Hello? Oh no, how did I lose face tracking suddenly? For no reason, seemingly. Okay, we're back. Silly. Wait, what button do I use to zoom in? Thought it was this one. Okay, it's not that one. It's not that one. It's not that one. Nope. Am I dumb? Maybe I could never do that. Maybe I'm just silly. Okay. I missed your last comment, Bacchus, but that's a good comment. Chapter 3, The Wisdom of Chandogya. As I was mentioning, I've read another translation of the Chandogya online, and it kind of goes all over the place. So I guess he cut it down for brevity because it goes all over the place. It's a little odd to cut down. It's a little odd to cut down a Shruti scripture. Not gonna lie, but it's a beautiful translation, so I can only object so much. Chapter 3, The Wisdom of Chandogya. The universe comes forth from Brahman. All exists in Brahman, and all will return to Brahman. Verily, all is Brahman. And remember, Brahman is the word for God. Or you could think of Brahman as what might be called the Godhead in Christianity. And then Atman is, the self is Atman, which Brahman and Atman are posited as sort of being the same thing. It's part of what the texts are, one of the central things, but it repeats it itself. A person is what his deep desire is. It is our deepest desire in this life that shapes the life to come. So let us direct our deepest desires to realize the self who can be realized by the pure in heart, who is life, light, truth, space, who gives rise to all works, all desires, all odors, all tastes, who is beyond words, who is joy abiding. This is the self dwelling in my heart. Smaller than a grain of rice, smaller than a grain of barley, smaller than a mustard seed, smaller than a grain of millet, smaller even than the kernel of a grain of millet is the self. This is the self dwelling in my heart, greater than the earth, greater than the sky, greater than all the worlds. This self who gives rise to all works, all desires, all odors, all tastes, who pervades the universe, who is beyond words, who is joy abiding, who is ever present in my heart, is Brahman indeed. To him I shall attain when my ego dies. So said Chandogya. So said Chandogya. Chapter 4, The Story of Satyakama. Mother, Satyakama said, I feel the time has come for me to go to the home of a spiritual teacher. From whom does our family come, so that I may tell him when he asks my lineage? I do not know, dear, she replied. You were born when I was young and going from place to place as a servant. Your name is Satyakama and my name is Jabalya. Why not call yourself Satyakama Jabalya? Jabala. I don't know why I got the Y in it. Satyakama went to Haridrumata Gautama and said to him, Sir, I want to become your disciple. What family are you from, bright one? Sir, I don't know. My mother says she bore me in her youth and doesn't know my ancestry. She says that since my name is Satyakama and hers is Jabala, I should call myself Satyakama Jabala. None but a true Brahmin could have said that. Fetch the firewood, my boy. I will initiate you. You have not flinched from the truth. He selected 400 lean and sickly cows and gave them to Satyakama to care for. I shall not return, the boy said to himself, until they become 1,000. For years, Satyakama dwelled in the forest, tending the herd. Then one day, the bull of the herd said to him, Satyakama. Sir, he replied, we have become 1,000. Let us now rejoin our teacher's family, and I will tell you one of the 4 feet of Brahman. Please tell me, Reverend Sir, the boy said. There are 4 quarters, east, west, south, and north. This is 1 foot of Brahman. called the shining. To meditate on these four is to become the full of light and master the resplendent regions of the cosmos. Knowing this portion of the truth, Agni, fire, will tell you more. The next day, Satyakama set out for his teacher's house with the herd. Toward evening, he made a fire, penned the cows, and sat by the fire facing east. The fire spoke. Satyakama, sir, friend, I can teach you another foot of Brahman. Please do, Reverend Sir. There are four quarters: earth, sky, heaven, and ocean. This is 1 foot of Brahman, called without end. Know this, meditating upon this reality, and your life will be without end on this earth. A swan will tell you more. The next day, Satyakama drove the cows onward. Toward evening, he lit a fire, penned the cows, and sat by the fire facing east. Then a swan flew near him and said, Satyakama, sir, friend, I can teach you another foot of Brahman. Please do, Reverend Sir. There are four quarters: fire, the sun, the moon, and lightning. These make 1 foot of Brahman, called full of light. To meditate upon this fourfold foot of truth is to be filled with the light in this world and master the world of light. A diver bird will tell you more. The next day, Satyakama drove the cows onward. Toward evening, he lit a fire, penned the cows, and sat by the fire facing east. Then a diver bird flew near him and spoke to him. Satyakama, sir, friend, I can teach you another foot of Brahman. Please do, Reverend Sir. There are 4 parts: breath, eye, ear, and mind. This is 1 foot of Brahman, called established. To meditate on this fourfold foot of Brahman is to be at home in this world and master space. Whoever knows this fourfold foot of Brahman is called established. So Satyakama returned to his teacher's home. Satyakama, his teacher said, you glow like one who has known the truth. Tell me, who has taught you? Satyakama replied, no human, sir, but I wish to hear the truth from you alone, for I have heard that only the teacher's wisdom comes to fruition for us. Then his teacher taught Satyakama that same wisdom. Nothing was left out for it. Nothing was left out from it. Nothing was left out. Chapter 6. The Story of Shvetaketu. Shvetaketu was Uddalaka's son. When he was 12, his father said to him, it is time for you to find a teacher, dear one, for no one in our family is a stranger to the spiritual life. So Shvetaketu went to a teacher and studied all the Vedas for 12 years. At the end of this time, he returned home, proud of his intellectual knowledge. You seem to be proud of all this learning, said Uddalaka. But did you ask your teacher for that spiritual wisdom which enables you to hear the unheard, think the unthought, and know the unknown? What is that wisdom, father? Asked the son. Uddalaka said to Shvetaketu, as by knowing one lump of clay, dear one, we come to know all things made out of clay. They differ only in name and form, while the stuff of which they are all made is clay. As by knowing one gold nugget, dear one, we come to know all things made out of gold, that they differ only in name and form, while the stuff of which all are made is gold. As by knowing one tool of iron, dear one, we come to know all things made out of iron, that they differ only in name and form, while the stuff of which all are made is iron. So through that spiritual wisdom, dear one, we come to know that all of life is one. My teachers must not have known this wisdom, said Shvetaketu. Oh my god. For if they had known, how could they have failed to teach it to me? Please instruct me in this wisdom, father. Yes, dear one, I will, replied his father. In the beginning was only being, one without a second. Out of himself he brought forth the cosmos and entered into everything in it. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will. Let us start with sleep. What happens in it? When one is absorbed in dreamless sleep, he is one with the self, though he knows it not. We say he sleeps, but he sleeps in the self. As a tethered bird grows tired of flying about in vain to find a place of rest and settles down at last in his own perch, so the mind, tired of wandering about hither and thither, settles down at last in the self, dear one, to which it is bound. I like hither, thither, whence. I like the words that are here, there, but to here, there, from there. I've been commenting on these less than I normally would because they're scriptural texts, but I do quite like hither and thither. All creatures, dear one, have their source in him. He is their home. He is their strength. When a person departs from this world, dear one, his speech merges in mind, his mind in prana, prana in fire in pure being. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please tell me, Father, more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Uddalaka said. As bees suck nectar from many a flower and make their honey one, so that no drop can say, I am from this flower or that. All creatures, though one, know not they are that one. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Uddalaka said. As the rivers flowing east and west merge in the sea and become one with it, forgetting they were ever separate rivers, so do all creatures lose their separateness when they merge at last into pure being. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Uddalaka said. Strike at the root of a tree, it would bleed, but still live. Strike at the trunk, it would bleed, but still live. Strike again at the top, it would bleed, but still live. The self as life supports the tree, which stands firm and enjoys the nourishment it receives. If the self leaves one branch, that branch withers. If it leaves a second, that too withers. If it leaves a third, that again withers. Let it leave the whole tree dies. Just so, dear one, when death comes and the self departs from the body dies, but the self does not. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Uddalaka said. Bring me a fruit from the Nyagrota tree. Here it is, sir. Break it. What do you see? These seeds, Father, all exceedingly small. Break one. What do you see? Nothing at all. That hidden essence you do not see, dear one. From that a whole tree will grow. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will. Place this salt in water and bring it here tomorrow morning. The boy did. Where is that salt? His father asked. I do not see it. Sip here. How does it taste? Salty, Father. And here and there, I taste salt everywhere. It is everywhere, though we see it not. Just so, dear one, the self is everywhere, within all things, although we see him not. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. I can't, it won't let me do it. It won't let me click and highlight because I'm using the iPad app for this on my desktop or my laptop. It is everywhere. It's this, whenever this line makes me think about at the beginning of Anti-Oedipus, Deleuze and Guattari, so Freud's superego, ego, and id are really just like the I, the above I, and the it, like that's just what the words mean in Latin, and people translated them with the Latin into English for some reason. And it kind of loses the punch when you call them that instead of calling them the I, the above I, and the it, I think. But near the beginning of Anti-Oedipus, they're talking about the id, and they're talking about how, like, basically, like, they're espousing a kind of pluralistic monism. Like, they're talking about how everything is one thing, but in a way that's kind of desire and, you know, bursts of violence, of difference, or whatever. But they talk about how they say what a shame it was to have ever said the id, or, you know, the it is everywhere. And I think about that. I think about that sometimes in relation to this, about Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Uddalaka said. As a man from Gandhara, blindfolded, led away and left in a lonely place, turns to the east and west and north and south and shouts, I am left here and cannot see, until one removes his blindfold and said, there lies Gandhara, follow that path. And thus informed, able to see for himself, the man inquires from village to village and reaches his homeland at last. Just so, my son, who finds an illumined teacher, attains to spiritual wisdom in the self. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will. When a man is dying, his family all gather round and ask, do you know me? Do you know me? And so long as his speech has not merged in mind, his mind in prana, prana in fire, and fire in pure being, he knows them all. But there is no more knowing when fire merges in speech. When speech merges in mind, mind in prana, prana in fire in pure being, there is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self supreme. You are that, Shvetaketu. You are that. Then Shvetaketu understood this teaching. Truly, he understood it all. Chapter 7. Narada's Education. Narada approached the sage Sanat Kumara and said, please teach me, Venerable One. Tell me what you know, replied the sage, and then I will teach you what is beyond that. I know the 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, and the epics called the 5th. I have studied grammar, rituals, mathematics, astronomy, logic, economics, physics, psychology, the fine arts, and even snake charming. But all this knowledge has not helped me to know the self. I have heard from spiritual teachers like you that one who realizes the self goes beyond sorrow. I am lost in sorrow. Please teach me how to go beyond. Whatever you know is just words, said Sanat Kumara, names of finite phenomena. It is the infinite that is the source of abiding joy, because it is not subject to change. Therefore, seek to know the infinite. I seek to know the infinite, Venerable One. When one realizes the indivisible unity of life, sees nothing else, hears nothing else, knows nothing else, that is the infinite. Where one sees separateness, hears separateness, knows separateness, that is the finite. The infinite is beyond death, but the finite cannot escape death. On what does the infinite depend, Venerable One? On its own glory? No, not even on that. In the world, people think they attain glory by having cows and horses, elephants and gold, family and servants, fields and mansions, but I do not call that glory, for here one thing depends upon another. Utterly independent is the infinite. That's a really important point to underscore. The infinite is above and below, before and behind, to the right and to the left. I am all this. The self is above and below, before and behind, to the right and to the left. I am all this. One who meditates upon the self and realizes the self sees the self everywhere and rejoices in the self. Such a one lives in freedom and is at home wherever he goes. But those who pursue the finite are blind to the self and live in bondage. One who meditates upon and realizes the self discovers that everything in the cosmos, energy and space, fire and water, name and form, birth and death, mind and will, word and deed, mantram and meditation, all come from the self. The self is one, though it appears to be many. Those who meditate upon the self and realize the self go beyond death and decay, beyond separateness and sorrow. They see the self in everyone and obtain all things, control the senses and purify the mind. In a pure mind, there is constant awareness of the self. Where there is constant awareness of the self, freedom ends bondage and joy ends sorrow. Thus, the sage Sanat taught the pure Narada to go beyond bondage, beyond sorrow, beyond darkness, to the light of the self. This is my favorite part, this little part that he ends it with, even though this is another one of the ones where he's kind of cutting around with this translation. I love this part. In the city of Brahman, there is a secret dwelling, the lotus of the heart. Within this dwelling is a space, and within that space is the fulfillment of our desires. What is within that space should be longed for and realized. As great as the infinite space beyond is the space within the lotus of the heart. Both heaven and earth are contained in that inner space. Both fire and air, sun and moon, lightning and stars. Whether we know it in this world or know it not, everything is contained in that inner space. Never fear that old age will invade that city. Never fear that this inner treasure of all reality will wither and decay. This knows no age when the body dies. This knows no dying when the body dies. This is the real city of Brahman. This is the self, free from old age, from death and grief, hunger and thirst. In the self, all desires are fulfilled. The self desires only what is real, thinks nothing but what is true. Here people do what they are told, becoming dependent on their country or their piece of land or desires of one another. So their desires are not fulfilled, or the desires of another. So their desires are not fulfilled and their works come to nothing, both in this world and in the next. Those who depart from this world without knowing who they are or what they truly desire have no freedom here or hereafter. But those who leave here knowing who they are and what they truly desire have freedom everywhere, both in this world and in the next. Would they see their departed mother or father? Lo, they see them and are happy. Would they see their family and friends? Lo, they see them and are happy. Would they enjoy the world of music, of spring flowers, of elegance? Lo, by their mere will, they enjoy these things. Whatever they desire, the object of that desire arises from the power of their own thoughts. They have it and are happy. Here, our selfless desires are hidden by selfish ones. They are real, but they are covered by what is false. Therefore, whoever our own departs from this life, not one can ever be brought back before our eyes. But all those we love, alive or departed, and all things we desire but do not have, are found when we enter that space within the heart. For there abides all desires that are true, though covered by what is false. Like strangers in an unfamiliar country walking over a hidden treasure, day by day we enter into the world of Brahman while in deep sleep, but never find it. Carried away by what is false. The self is hidden in the lotus of the heart. Those who see themselves in all creatures go day by day into the world of Brahman, hidden in the heart. Established in peace, they rise above body consciousness to the supreme light of the self. Immortal, free from fear, this self is Brahman, called the true. Beyond the mortal and the immortal, he binds both worlds together. Those who know this live day by day in heaven in this very life. The self is a bulwark against the confounding of these worlds and a bridge between them. Day and night cannot cross that bridge, nor old age, nor death, nor grief, nor evil, nor good deeds. All evils turn back there, unable to cross. Evil comes not into this world of Brahman. One who crosses by this bridge, if blind, is blind no more. If hurt, ceases to be hurt. If in sorrow, ceases sorrowing. At this boundary, night comes into day. Night comes not into this world of Brahman. Only those who are pure and self-controlled can find this world of Brahman. That world is theirs alone. In that world, in all the worlds, they live in perfect freedom. The great teacher Prajapati said, "The self is pure, free from decay and death, free from hunger and thirst, and free from sorrow. The self desires nothing that is not good, wills nothing that is not good. Seek and realize the self. Those who seek and realize the self fulfill all the desires and attain the goal supreme." The Devas and Asuras, the gods and the godless, heard this truth and said, "Let us seek and realize the self, so that we may fulfill all our desires." So Indra from among the gods and Virochana from among them, the godless, approached Prajapati, carrying fuel in their hands as a sign that they wanted to become his disciples. They dwelt with him for 32 years, and at the end of that time, Prajapati asked why they had stayed with him for so long. Indra and Virochana said, "We have heard of your inspiring words. The self is pure, free from decay and death, free from hunger and thirst, and free from sorrow. The self desires nothing that is not good, wills nothing that is not good. Seek and realize the self. Those who seek and realize the self will fulfill all their desires and attain the goal supreme. We have been living here as your disciples because we want to realize the self." Prajapati said to them, "When you look into another's eyes, what you see is the self, fearless and deathless. That is Brahman, the supreme." Venerable One asked the two disciples, "What is it that we see reflected in the water or in a mirror?" "It is the self you see in all these," he said to them. "Now look at yourself in a bowl of water and ask me anything you want to learn about the self." They looked at themselves in a bowl of water. "What did you see in the water?" "We have seen the self, even the hair and the nails. Put on your best clothes, adorn your body, and look again in the water." They did so and came back to Prajapati. "What did you see in the water?" he asked. "We have seen the self, well dressed and well adorned," they replied. "That is the self, fearless and deathless. That is Brahman, the supreme." Indra and Virochana went away satisfied. But Prajapati said to himself, "They have seen the self, but they have not recognized the self. They mistake the self to be the body. Those who think the self is the body will lose their way in life." Virochana, quite sure that the self is the body, went back to the godless and began to teach them that the body alone is to be saved. The body alone is to be adored. He taught them that whoever lives for indulging the senses will find joy in this world and the next. Even today, people are called godless when they lack faith, love, and charity, because that is the way of the godless. They dress even dead bodies in fine clothes and adorn them with ornaments so that they may enjoy their life in the next world. But Indra, as he was on his way home to the gathering of the gods, began to question this knowledge. Sorry, I'm back. If the self is the same as the body, well dressed when the body is well dressed, well adorned when the body is well adorned, then the self will be blind when the body is blind, lame when the body is lame, paralyzed when the body is paralyzed. And when the body dies, the self too will die. In such knowledge I see no value. Again Indra went back to Prajapati with fuel in hand. "Why have you returned, Indra?" his teacher asked. "Did you not go away quite satisfied?" "Venerable One," replied Indra, "if the self is well dressed when the body is well dressed, or well adorned when the body is well adorned, then the self will be blind when the body is blind, lame when the body is lame, paralyzed when the body is paralyzed, and when the body dies, the self too will die. In such knowledge I see no value." "You are thinking clearly, Indra," said Prajapati. "Live with me for another 32 years, and I will teach you more of the self." So Indra lived with Prajapati for another 32 years. Then Prajapati said to him, "That which moves about in joy in the dreaming state is the self. fearless and deathless. That is Brahman, the supreme. Indra went away satisfied, but on his way home to the gathering of the gods, he began to question this knowledge. In the dreaming state, it is true. The self is not blind when the body is blind, nor lame when the body is lame, nor paralyzed when the body is paralyzed, nor slain when the body is slain. Yet, in dreams, the self may appear to suffer and to be slain. It may become conscious of pain or even weep. In such knowledge, I see no value. Again, Indra went back to Prajapati with fuel in hands. Why have you returned, Indra? His teacher asked. Did you not go away quite satisfied? Venerable one, replied Indra. Oh my goodness, I'm struggling over words because I've been reading for a while. In the dreaming state, it is true. The self is not blind when the body is blind, nor lame when the body is lame. Yet in this state, the self may still suffer and even weep. In such knowledge, I see no value. You are thinking clearly, Indra, said Prajapati. Live with me for another 32 years and I will teach you more of the self. Indra lived with Prajapati for another 32 years. Then his teacher said, Hello, Zagrium. We're reading the Chandogya Upanishad. We're near the end, or at least of this translation. When a person is sleeping soundly, free from dreams, with the still mind, that is the self, fearless and deathless. That is Brahman, the supreme. Indra went away satisfied, but on his way home to the gathering of the gods, he began to question this knowledge. In the state of dreamless sleep, one is not aware of oneself or any other. This state of dreamless sleep is very close to extinction. In this knowledge, I see no value. This is such an interesting turn considering that the state of dreamless sleep is compared to realizing Atman in other parts of the text. Again, Indra went back to Prajapati with fuel in hand. Why have you returned, Indra? His teacher asked. Did you not go away quite satisfied? Venerable one, in the state of dreamless sleep, one is not aware of oneself or any other. The state of dreamless sleep is very close to extinction. In this knowledge, I see no value. You are thinking clearly, Indra. Live with me for another 5 years and I will teach you to realize the self. Indra lived with Prajapati for another 5 years. Altogether, he lived with his teacher for 101 years, which is why people say even Indra had to live with his teacher for 101 years. After that time, Prajapati revealed the highest truth of the self to Indra. It is true that the body is perishable, but within it dwells the imperishable self. This body is subject to pleasure and pain. No one who identifies with the body can escape from pleasure and pain. But those who know they are not this body pass beyond pleasure and pain to live in abiding joy. Like the wind, like clouds, like thunder and rain, which rise from space without physical shape and reach the transcendent light in their own form, those who rise above body consciousness ascend to the transcendent light in their real form, the self. In that state, free from attachment, they move at will, laughing, playing, and rejoicing. They know the self is not this body, but only tied to it for a time as an ox is tied to its cart. Whenever one sees, smells, speaks, hears, or thinks, they know it is the self that sees, smells, speaks, hears, and thinks. Their senses are but his instruments. Worshipping the self in the world of Brahman, the gods obtained all worlds and all desires. Those who know this self and realize this self obtain all worlds and all desires. So said Prajapati. So taught Prajapati. Oh, and oh my god. Can't speak anymore. This last section of the translation is so good. From the divine dark to the manifest, to the divine dark I pass again. As a horse shakes free its mane, I have shaken off all evil, freeing myself from the bonds of birth and death as the moon escapes from Rahu's mouth. I have obtained the pure realm of Brahman. I have obtained the pure realm of Brahman. Brahman is my home. I shall not lose it. Truly, I shall not be lost again. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, that's about all the speaking I can do for now. My mouth is getting quite tired. I quite I find both of these to be very moving. Though there's things in the Chandogya that I think I interpret differently than what is said on the face of it regarding the nature of difference versus identity. It's very oh, hello, Pandora's Paradox. Hiya. We just finished up with the reading. I'm probably gonna get off the stream soon because I'm kind of, this is my first time streaming in a while, and I'm kind of at a setup where my neck's down and it hurts a little bit. And also I need some water. But it's cool that you're here. Did you enjoy the reading? Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, sewing. That sounds so nice. What are you sewing? Panda jacket. Wow, that sounds super cute. What? That sounds fantastic. Oh. Well, I'd imagine, you know, even though it hurts and it requires a lot of stress, I'd imagine there's something that's very nice about the hand sewing, regardless. The machine would scare me too. I have not ever used a sewing machine, though eventually I want to learn to. My roommate has informed me that it is Prajapati, which is Prajap. Oh my god. Yeah, do not take my opinions to mean anything, or my pronunciations to mean anything. Go read the text yourself. Oh my god. Oh. Well, oh goodness. Hey, well, you know what? I'm flattered that you consider me, that you consider this worth watching at 2:30 in the morning. It's always a good time to think about God. That's what I think. It's always a good time to think about illumination, you know? Yeah, I'm tired. I don't have anything else planned. I guess I'm gonna go. Unless y'all have something to say before I go. Hope y'all have a good one. A blessed day, as some people sometimes say.